Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So today we're going to address sports and trans and intersex people in sports. And I am an intersex person, and I'm also genderqueer, meaning that I am in a sense like male and female, where a trans person is the opposite gender. I'm like both genders. And believe me, that's been a lot of anguish in my life. People sometimes act like it was a choice to me or I like it. I really would have chosen not this, because society is so fucked to people like me that, you know, it's never accepted. Even not even super accepted in the queer community or the LBGT. Not really. I don't feel a lot of love. And if I were to come out as trans, I'd probably get more support than me saying I'm intersex and genderqueer. And I tell people, it's not me saying that they're trans shouldn't get support. Fuck, they deserve it. Right. I'm saying so do people like me.
Right. Yeah, it's a I'm not entirely sure what causes that.
Well, I would say to me, it's the same as people don't like bisexual, as the same as someone being straight or gay. Right. It's this belief there's not somehow in between that non-binary sexuality or the non-binary gender are not favored, because society, in a sense, a trans person is saying, I am okay with the binary. I'm just, not the same as it was just, given to at birth of what they thought I was or what my body may look like. Because like me, my body may look one way, but I don't feel like that. People are dumbfounded and shocked that someone as big and tough as me, aggressive as me, also likes super feminine stuff. Art and plays and hate sports. And they're like, I mean, because I don't like working on cars. I mean,
but all these things that are coded as masculine, right?
Right. And people assume I'm big, I'm tough, I absolutely must have all these masculine things. And then they find out, like, I don't have almost any of them. They're like, the fuck is wrong with you? But that's the problem. Is there's something wrong with society that I can't be. And like I said, they want, like you said before to me about boxes. People want to put me in a box. And so it makes them feel very uncomfortable when I don't fit in a box. When I'm like, yeah, my gender doesn't fit in a box.
Right.
And I was born intersex, so my body doesn't fit in a box. And they're like, even like people have told me when I tell them intersex, and I even show intersex pictures one time, right? People have two different genders as far as their genitals, right?
Right.
Intersex. And they'll say, oh, well, that is a woman or that's a man. I'm like, once again, the fuck is wrong with you? No, it's not.
Right.
So they can have a vagina and a penis, and they're still either a man or a woman, and you decided for them?
Yeah, you don't get to do that, actually. That's not how that works. I had a conversation with someone who, when I was driving Uber, and they were a passenger. I was driving Uber.
Oh, Uber.
And I had a passenger who somehow we got on the conversation of trans people in sports, because sometimes that happens. And I tried to express to them like how common like intersex people actually are, because they said, oh well, there's men and there's women and that's it. And I'm like, well, but there's intersex people too, right? Like that's a thing that exists. Oh yeah, but that's so rare. It's not even that. I said, well, it's more common than redheads actually. Like we know that there's a higher chance of being intersex than there is of having red hair.
Correct. But people don't realize is intersex can somewhat look sometimes like me. I can look like a male, but then when you check my behavior doesn't match, but then really it does. It matches someone who's intersex.
Right.
Doesn't fit the shit. Like I'm non-binary. What a shock.
So I guess we've got a bit of some notes here. So Damien is anti-sports, mainly the toxic warrior culture it stems from, and too often is corrupted by. But if there are to be sports, then trans people and intersex people should be able to play as they are. Quote, violence in sports involves crossing the line between fair competition and intentional aggressive violence. Athletes, coaches, fans, and parents sometimes unleash violent behavior on people or property in misguided shows of loyalty, dominance, anger, or celebration. Rioting or hooliganism by fans, in particular, is a problem at some national and international sporting contests.
Right, and people forget this. They always go, oh, sports is always so beneficial. It brings people together. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? It's like fucking my side bias hardcore. You're picking one thing and then to the exclusion of all others. Can you even like a person who's a great player at another team if it's the rival team? Really?
And even if a player you liked on the team you support leaves, now you hate them.
Right. I don't know that because I don't know about sports. But great.
Yeah, like it's as soon as you're not on my team, you're the enemy.
Right, and we wonder how that tribalism could possibly lead to things like sexism, racism, homophobia. Oh, but it does.
How does that play into political sphere?
Well, a lot of sports are actually political. In fact, even you're going to read in Mexico, they were in a sense city states, and they would fight each other by ball games.
Right.
So sports has always been involved in violence. It's not a new thing. It's not like, oh well, just the bad people in sports. No, actually, only the good people in sports do it without violence.
Right.
A better way of saying it.
Yeah. It's more the norm. So ancient Egyptian religion, sports, and warrior culture, military and sports. Military sports are sports practiced by the military. Particular sports may be chosen to improve combat readiness, skill, toughness, the development of physical qualities of the war fighter, and professional proficiency based on the different areas of the military action. Many of today's sports were practiced by the ancient Egyptians. Inscriptions on monuments indicate that they practiced wrestling, weightlifting, long jump, swimming, rowing, shooting, fishing, and athletics, as well as various kinds of ball games.
And shooting with bow and arrows, just so
right, yeah. For anybody who's going to jump out and be like, they didn't have guns.
or an addle or something. I mean, it wouldn't have been.
Right. Yeah, it would have been whatever shooting weapons they had at the time.
Yeah, which they would call shooting. Yeah.
Yeah. Sports and the pharaoh. The importance of physical fitness to a pharaoh's ability to govern was reflected in the Heb-Sed festival, staged after a king's initial 30 years on the throne to revitalize him. Gauged the pharaoh's capacity to perform different tests of skill and endurance, including archery. Princes were often appointed as generals in the Egyptian army and were expected to command major campaigns. They were encouraged to exercise regularly, particularly during the New Kingdom. Hunting and fishing influenced both the development of other sports as well as military applications of these sporting skills and techniques. Archaeologists believe the modern javelin probably developed from both spear hunting skills and military spearmen techniques. Similarly, archery was also a sport, an effective hunting skill, and a potent military specialty. Ancient Chinese religion, sports, and warrior culture. Artifacts and structures suggest sport in China as early as 2000 BC. Gymnastics appeared to have been popular in China's ancient past. Ancient Persian sports, such as the traditional Iranian martial art of Zurkhaneh.
I don't pronounce words good either.
I'm not sure. Had a close connection to warfare skills. Among other sports that originated in ancient Persia are polo and jousting. Sport in China has long been associated with the martial arts. Today, China, including mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau, consists of a variety of competitive sports. Traditional Chinese culture regards physical fitness as an important characteristic. Dragon boat racing dates back about 2,000 years ago and remains a traditional event held around China every year. Kuju, a game similar but not related to the modern game of football, was played in China during the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC. Martial arts activities became popular in China. So Kuju, ancient Chinese soccer or football. Kuju of ancient China is the earliest known recorded game of football. It was also played in other Asian countries like Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. A competitive form of Kuju was used as fitness training for military cavaliers. The Japanese version of Kuju is Kamari and was developed during the Asuka period. This is known to have been played within the Japanese imperial court in Kyoto from about 600 AD. In Kamari, several people stand in a circle and kick a ball to each other, trying not to let the ball drop to the ground. Much like Keepy Uppy. I don't know that game. But I guess it's like hacky sack.
Yeah. But once again, it just shows that, like I was trying to get people to understand, is these things that we see as, oh, those couldn't possibly be involved in anything. Yes, they were.
Right. They're used in military training.
Right. And even if, let's say, all the stuff like boating or whatever, they think it's harmless. Yeah, you're picking teams, so it's still an ingraining of tribalism. It's teaching tribalism, and then they go, oh, that teaches, values and stuff. Yeah, teamsmanship, yeah, for tribalism.
For the purposes of tribalism.
Yeah, it's great at that.
Yeah.
Just look at it and just think, do sports occur without hazing?
I imagine that they could.
Right. But no, you're not going to go as far as to say they do not happen without it. So to tell me that somehow it's some aberrant behavior of this toxic culture, bullshit. It's the whole thing. No one believes that it happens without it because it doesn't. Because it's a toxic culture.
Yeah. Continuing on, I suppose, our archaeology news. 3,000-year balls from China were played in Eurasia's oldest ball game, Humanity's fascination with ball games has no limits, as more than 10 billion people combined watched football, cricket, basketball, and tennis. And archaeological evidence spanning the centuries and continents tells us ancient humans were equally thrilled by kicking or throwing a ball around as a pastime. In ancient Egypt, for instance, the oldest known balls were made out of linen about 4,500 years ago. That's really cool.
You know me, I always bring in prehistory.
Yeah, for sure. Ancient Greek.
That's like when you asked me or said someone should talk about the modern atheist movement. I'm like, yeah, but let's first direct the historical atheist movement and the prehistorical atheist movement.
Where was it before? Yeah, for sure. Ancient Greek religion, sports, and warrior culture. A wide range of sports were already established by the time ancient Greece and military culture, and the military culture and the development of sport in Greece influenced one another considerably. Pheninda and Episkyros were Greek ball games. Athenaeus, writing in 228 CE, referenced the Roman ball game harpastum. Pheninda, Episkyros, and harpastum, jeez, were played involving hands and violence. They all appeared to have resembled rugby, football, wrestling, and volleyball, more than what is recognizable as modern football. As with pre-codified mob football, the antecedent of all modern football codes, these three games involved more handling the ball than kicking. The ancient Greeks and Romans are known to have played many ball games, some of which involved the use of feet. The Roman game harpastum is believed to have been adapted from a Greek game known as Episkyros or Pheninda, which is mentioned by a Greek playwright, Antiphanes, and later referred to by the Christian theologian Clement of Alexandria. These games appear to have resembled rugby football. Ancient Roman religion, sports, and warrior culture. The Roman politician Cicero describes the case of a man who was killed whilst having a shave when a ball was kicked into a barber's shop. Roman ball games already knew the air-filled ball, the pholus. Episkyros is recognized as an early form of football by FIFA. Okay. Ancient Native American religion, sports, and warrior culture. The Aztec ball game was actually a revision of an ancient Mesoamerican game that was played by many peoples, including the Mayans. It may have originated with the ancient Olmec civilization. It became a very important part of the Aztec Empire, not just as entertainment, but for political and religious reasons as well. It is not known precisely when or where the Mesoamerican ball game originated, although it is likely that it originated earlier than 2000 BCE, or 4,022 years ago, or so in the low-lying tropical zones home to the rubber tree. One candidate for the birthplace of the ball game is the Soconusco coastal lowlands along the Pacific Ocean at Paso de la Amada. Archaeologists have found the oldest ball court yet discovered, dated to approximately 1400 BCE, around 3,422 years ago. Excavations at the nearby Olmec site of San Lorenzo Tenochtitlan. Okay.
Something like that.
Sounds good. Have also, it's better than I did. Have also uncovered a number of ball player figurines, radiocarbon dated as far back as 1250 to 1150 BCE, around 3,272 to 3,172 years ago. The Mesoamerican ball game was a sport with ritual associations played since at least 1650 BCE, or 3,672 years ago, by the pre-Columbian people of the ancient Mesoamerica. The sport had different versions in different places according to the millennia, and a newer, more modern version of the game, Ulama, is still played by the indigenous populations in some places. The rules of the Mesoamerican ball game are not known, but judging from its descendant, ulama, they were probably similar to racquetball, where the aim is to keep the ball in play. The stone ball court goals are a late addition to the game. The Mesoamerican ball game had important ritual aspects, and major formal ball games were held as ritual events late in the history of the game. Some cultures occasionally seem to have combined competitions with religious human sacrifice. The sport was also played casually for recreation by children and may have been played by women as well. Pre-Columbian ball courts have been found throughout Mesoamerica, for example at Copan, as far south as modern Nicaragua, and possibly as far north as what is now the U.S. state of Arizona. These ball courts are vary considerably in size, but all have long, narrow valleys with slanted side walls against which the balls could bounce. Even without human sacrifice, the Mesoamerican ball game could be brutal, and there were often serious injuries inflicted by the solid, heavy ball. Today's hip ulama players are perpetually bruised, quote unquote, perpetually bruised. So,
Right.
It must be something that's quite severe.
But people will still support even that because we see sports as somehow wholesome to building team, spirit or whatever bullshit we want to. But
Right.
It's like I said, it's like when people say family values. Which family values are you talking about? Because it doesn't sound like value to me. It's usually, I don't know, it's sexism, racism, and homophobia often what they call family values.
Yeah. They're perpetually bruised. While nearly 500 years ago, Spanish chronicler Diego Duran reported that some bruises were so severe that they had to be lanced open. He also
That's
reported, yeah, that means they were swollen up with internal bleeding. And then he also reported that players were even killed when the ball hit them in the mouth or the stomach or the intestines. Yikes. With city-states and tribes playing against one another in the Mesoamerican ballgame, it's not surprising that the Aztec ballgame took on a political significance. A win or a loss was very much taken to heart. At times, the game would turn into an excuse for an assassination or attack. The game might also be used to settle differences between two parties. Huge wagers might be made by kings as well. A story is told of two kings, one wagering a garden, another wagering a marketplace. The marketplace was lost, but the winning king was assassinated when a contingency from the loser congratulated him. They gave him a garland with a leather strangling cord hidden inside.
Yeah. Builds team spirit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, military does that too, but the problem is it only sees itself as having to protect one team.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. The Aztec ball game had a lot of ritual significance. It was meant to mirror the ball court of the heavens. This being the ball court of the underworld where the sun passed each night. The game represented the battle between day and night, and so was also related to the human blood sacrifices that were intended to keep the sun moving in the sky. It is said that the ball represented the head of a sacrificed victim.
Right, and probably at one time, that is what it was.
Right, yeah.
Actual freaking head.
It's representative in this, but at one time it was probably the actual head.
Right.
Yeah.
Like throwing people in wood chippers. Same, it's that same warrior cult mentality that I don't support.
Yeah. In Tenochtitlan. There we go. The ball court was at the foot of the blood-stained stairs of the temple, and the ball game itself would often be a scene of sacrifice. It is believed that the losing coach or even the whole team might be sacrificed. Some historians have disputed this because it was an honor to be sacrificed. It may have been the winning team that lost their lives. Yikes. I'll just throw every fucking game. You know, I don't want to win. That's all good.
But certainly, it was still good because it could promote team spirit.
Right.
Let's not forget its good sides. You know, people say, Damien, you're too harsh on sports. Yeah, I think you're too damn soft on them.
Yeah, for sure. Politics and sports. The use of sports in politics has both positive and negative implications over history. Sports competitions or activities have had the intention to bring about change in certain cases. Nationalistic fervor is sometimes linked to victories or losses to some sports on sports fields. While many clubs don't have a fixed political identity, some clubs are known to have clear leanings. According to YouGov statistics, supporters of the English club Sunderland AFC predominantly lean to the political left and often sing the red flag during games. While Sunderland fans are generally regarded as left-wing, the hooligan firm Seaburn Casuals was known for having far-right associations. When 26 Seaburn Casuals hooligans were arrested in a police raid before the 1998 FIFA World Cup, some of them were found to have been involved with neo-Nazi groups like Combat 18.
Right. Supporting all these great team spirits.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's like if you like the same team, then it doesn't matter if somebody's a Nazi or communist, because we all support the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Right.
So no, that's not good.
Yeah. No, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. Like I'm not saying I want to have pedophiles running free. No. I'm just saying I don't throw them in wood chippers.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a mental health problem and it's a societal danger, and then we should address it as a valued person accordingly.
Yeah. Address it systemically and don't throw people in wood chippers.
Well, I mean, but how can that possibly be the anarchist solution towards crime?
Yeah, you can't.
Because I've heard people before that say, well, I need a gun so that I could, take care of things. I'm like, I can do a lot of stuff that doesn't involve a gun and take care of things a lot better.
Yeah.
We need to have, they've already shown it, so it's not just like a guess, that if you send out mental health professionals and not just people with guns to situations, that often they can actually help solve the situations.
Yeah.
But sometimes, as you know, our society starts off with a complete fucked idea. Like when they go and they get rid of the housing for the homeless by destroying and throwing away their tents and shit.
Yeah,
that's not just wrong. That's fucking inhuman, man. What the fuck?
Well, and then the solution isn't to provide housing; it's to make being homeless or gathering in parks illegal or some shit. Like it's just the opposite of way of actually solving the problem.
Well, there's places in America, I think it may be Florida, I'm not totally sure, where it's illegal to feed them. Just like I think in some parts of Texas, it's illegal to give migrants water. What kind of an inhuman piece of shit are you that is even the thought in your head?
It's nonsense.
It's fucking sickening.
So we've got racism in sports. Racism in sports has been a prevalent issue throughout the world, and in particular, racism towards African Americans has been especially severe over the course of the history of sports in the United States and around the world. The Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission released a report in 2007 stating that racial abuse and vilification are commonplace in international sports.
But hey, let's keep doing sports and not challenge them at all because they're good for white people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In places such as racial abuse and vilification are commonplace in international sports in places such as Australia, Europe, and America. Racism has a long history in association football and has prompted a response from numerous political and footballing organizations. The topic of racism in association with football has been widely covered by the media as well as academic studies. Scholars have described an invisible centrality of whiteness that permeates the upper levels of football in Europe. Non-white football players in Europe are frequently stereotyped in a racialized manner. In response to these incidents, Numerous anti-racism organizations have been formed, including Show Racism the Red Card, which was established in 1996. Other organizations include Football Against Racism in Europe and Racism Breaks the Game. Sexism in sports.
Well, also, all these subjects, including even the history, the blog itself, if people go to that, there's like 5 times much. I just didn't want you to sit here and like have 3 hours of reading.
Fair. No, that's fair.
You're probably going, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
So, like you said, people don't read, so I gotta have you read some stuff because people won't read the blog. I put all kinds of work into it, and I care, but I understand people don't like read. I can't hold them too much accountable because I don't like reading either. So I get it.
This is like an abridged audio version of.
There you go.
Though there is, I mean, if somebody wanted to look into racism in sports, there's a lot of history there.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I only skimmed it even what's in the blog. I could have wrote 5 blogs on just probably racism in sports.
And there might be people who have done that. So.
Oh yeah. I'm just trying to bring up that this thinking that sports is somehow above reproach is just fucking horseshit.
It wasn't it's a little while ago now. Me and Pam watched the Colin Kaepernick show on Netflix, and he kind of talks at the start about how being a football player, it's like you're being examined like an animal. Like you're supposed to run the combine, you're being measured physically in all these ways as though you were livestock.
Right.
And I mean, they're human beings, right? Like and they're trained to accept this because it starts at a young age. They have to meet these certain criteria the whole way up.
It teaches that capitalism is healthy,
right?
Which is a very unhealthy thing to teach.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems very messed up.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that when I first say I'm anti-sports, some people get like angry at me. Like, how dare I? Don't you know how good they are for kids? I'm like, yeah, do you realize that more kids actually die from sports injuries than get killed by guns that you want to ban all of? But yet, we got to protect sports, even though I think it's like 2 or 3 million children a year get injured. Who gives a fuck? 60 million play, so the odds aren't that bad. I'm like,
well, and I mean, I don't know if we'll maybe get to it, but like the brain injuries that come from football.
Oh yeah, I don't go into. Well, yeah. Oh, I could go on forever about the problems. I want to get the trans issues.
Right.
I'm trying to give you because I know people are bigoted. They hear Damien is against sports and they're like, oh, fucking dickhead. Of course he's against sports. He doesn't like anything masculine. Yeah, well, have you heard the shit about sports? Maybe you should rethink your ideas about sports.
How come it keeps turning out that all these things that we label as masculine are awful?
I'm glad you said it.
Like, it's not out of nowhere that people don't like masculine things.
Yeah.
All right, sexism in sports. Historically, sports have been seen as a male domain. The masculine perception of sport was first moderated with the rise of women's sports and further challenged with the gradual acceptance of gay sportsmen. A third departure from tradition occurred with the emergence of trans athletes, many of whom challenged the culturally accepted binary gender norms of male and female. Sexism in sports exists at all levels.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
How is that not something that people care about? It's not a one-off, just like the violence or the racism. It's not a one-off. It's almost like built into the shit.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, but the good things. Really?
At some point, it just sounds like excuses.
Right.
Yeah. Female athletes still face harmful double standards that manifest in many ways, including intolerance, gender dress code restrictions, and staggering pay gaps. In fact, no female athlete is included in the 2018 list of the world's top 100 highest paid athletes.
And just stop for a second. Is that not some fucked up shit?
In 2018, not
1970.
Yeah, 2018.
So they go, well, Damien, yeah, maybe sports before were bad, but now, what the? You just don't know history, or now either.
Yeah, you're just not paying attention.
Right. And I'm thinking, the only people that can do that with a straight face are people that are so fucking privileged that they're just oblivious to it. You know,
Yeah.
like when you're white and you don't go, I wonder how it is to be black. Well, they're always that way. And so it's always happening. It's not like a one-time event they had racist things happen to them. It's
Right.
a lifetime of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah. Violence and sports. Violence in sports usually refers to violent and often unnecessary, harmful, intentional physical acts committed during or motivated by a sports game, often in relation to contact sports such as American football, ice hockey, rugby football, lacrosse, association football, boxing, mixed martial arts, wrestling, and water polo. And when referring to the players themselves, often involving excessively violent or potentially illegal physical contact beyond the normal levels of contact expected while playing the sport. These acts of violence can include intentional attempts to injure a player or coach by another player or coach, but can also include threats of physical harm or actual physical harm sustained by players or coaches by fans or those engaging in the spectating of sports, or threats and acts of violence performed by fans or spectators upon opposing fans or other spectators. There are two major theories on the cause of violence in sports. One theory holds that humans have an instinct for violence developed during a time when early human ancestors had to resort to violence and aggressiveness to survive and reproduce. Another theory deals with the sociological aspects of violence in sports, stating that sports are mock battles, which can become actual battles due to their competitive nature.
See, now that's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's pretty close to how I view it.
Yeah, that's what I talk about, that I'm anti-sports, the warrior culture. I'm not saying that there's absolutely nothing could be good. I'm saying that it's generally not good, and it's generally promoted because it's not good. People don't promote the soft, what the normal heterosexual Christian male would probably say is that Damien wants to pussify sports, or what I don't know exactly what they say.
That is something they say. That's literally something I've heard.
Right. So when they try to say that sports is healthy and shit, have you talked to an average sport lover? Because that's not their fucking opinion. In fact, they're mad when I talk about making it healthy. They're like, "What the fuck do you want to do? Make it for fucking faggots or something?"
It's not uncommon for people in sport to refer to themselves as warriors or gladiators or like.
Right, exactly. So I'm not even being extreme when I try to say it's continued. Just pay attention. It is. It's not a guess. It's not like I'm exaggerating. This, like you said, they will tell you, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
and you're
exactly.
Like, well, I'm going to make it a lot of healthier and good. Where gays and intersex and trans people, and they're like, oh my god, you're ruining sports. Oh, really? So it's always about the shitty male bullshit then, right? Always about racism, sexism, and homophobia. That's what I thought. That's why I can't be for sports. How the fuck can you?
Yeah. Through a civilizing process, many modern sports have become less tolerant of bloodshed than past versions. Although many violent aspects of these sports still remain, athletes sometimes resort to violence in hopes of injuring and intimidating opponents. Such incidents may be a part of a strategy developed by coaches or players. Just on a kind of a side note that's kind of related is that, like, it is not uncommon to have what's called an enforcer on your hockey team. And that's the guy you send out when you want him to get into a fight so that you can dominate or remove a threat from the other team so that you can win. Like, you want to get the toughest guy you can who will go out and beat somebody up.
So you're just giving a real word explanation to what I know intuitively. Look at this stuff. Oh, come on.
Yeah, like it. I used to listen to a show, a sports show, and they talked quite a bit about like fighting in hockey because it had become what they considered an epidemic. Like, it was too much. There was too much fighting in hockey. But they never addressed the idea of like the contact, the we're hitting each other as hard as we can on the ice on skates.
Right.
Aspect of it.
It was never designed to be friendly.
No, that's right. The whole
And
thing
in fact,
is
if it was only friendly, less people would be liking it.
exactly.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, just think how many people, especially what they said on skates, like when gay people or trans people or something, or intersex person goes out and does skating, but really flamboyantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we have like hockey has a really rabid homophobic streak in it. Like,
well, sports do.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying.
That's
the big point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And what that goes back to for me is this warrior culture. It's a male only, cis male only, straight male only. I mean, it's
yeah, for sure. And there's, I mean, there's so many problems with fucking sports.
Yes, I couldn't possibly put it all in one blog or do it in one video.
Like, yeah, like there's people who like there's lots of videos out there about the molestation that happens with sports and coaches and kids too. Like, it's people trust coaches in the same way they trust their priests. And there
neither of them are trustable.
and neither of them is trustable. Exactly. Like you're just putting somebody in charge of your kids. You don't know this person. They're just the coach. And it's very problematic. Okay. LBTI women in sports. Violence, discrimination, and lived experiences. In March 2021, a coalition of European networks working on LGBTI rights and including ILGA Europe, ELC-TGEU, the OLL Europe, and EGLSF submitted to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe a briefing note on violence and discrimination against LBTI women in sport.
And that's lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and intersex for people that don't know what those acronyms or whatever stand for.
Yeah, fair. The PACE has drawn attention, or the PACE has drawn attention to gender-based violence and discrimination in sports for many years, and so the submission aimed at offering a specific focus on the position of lesbian, bisexual, trans, and intersex LBTI women in sport, and had the objective to support the PACE in its formulation of the report on the fight for a level playing field, ending discrimination against women in the world of sport, and a consequent resolution. The data and information we collected revealed the specific situations and barriers that LBTI women face in sport, while discrimination and violence against them remain phenomena largely unknown or not visible. We decided for this reason to publish the results of our work, and we urge decision makers, stakeholders, and sports leaders at every level to take into account the needs of LBTI women in sport and ensure the full respect of their fundamental rights. Provincial governing bodies for high school sports have independent policies on the participation of transgender or non-binary athletes on sex-segregated teams. Organizations such as the Alberta Schools...
Let me pause for 1 second.
Oh.
But just see already that how sports is designed is sex-segregated team. They've already, they defined it. Imagine if it was race-segregated teams.
Right.
Would it seem as wholesome?
Yeah, definitely not okay.
What I'm saying is that it allows them also, like the religious mindset, that it's only a male and female. It already starts with this bigotry that
Right.
It has to be forced. It's not like automatically accepting because sports aren't automatically wonderful. They have to force it to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not already acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. Organizations such as the Alberta Schools Athletic Association, the Manitoba High Schools Athletic Association, and the BC School Sports each have policies that allow the participation of transgender student athletes in accordance with their gender identity. Transgender or non-binary student athletes looking to compete in a team consistent with their gender identity in British Columbia must submit an application to the BC School Sports Executive Director, and are required to have a written statement from both the student athlete and the principal of their high school confirming their gender identity. There are no rules federally to regulate inclusion of transgender children. States vary widely on participation of transgender children in sports and which locker room those students should use. Opponents of including transgender athletes emphasize the argument that there may be an unfair advantage of larger size and strength in trans women, and trans athletes could threaten the safety of cisgender children, both in competition and in the locker room. Saying that out loud makes me mad.
Yeah, there's definitely more that'll make you mad. Just keep reading.
Okay.
But yeah, and so just like to me, okay, so if you feel that there's a size thing, then have people do things by weight. But if you're not going to have it across the board, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's right.
To me, in general, ethics. If it's ethical, it should be universal unless there's some extremely reasonable reason otherwise.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be assumed. It's like when you assume there's only male and female, like, well, that assumption is fucking wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, but yeah, go read a book.
But you're still incorrect. Advocates in favor of allowing transgender children to participate in sports based on their preferred gender point out the known benefits of participating in sports and the psychological well-being of the transgender children. Many states have tried to mimic the NCAA and IOC rules that rely on testosterone level tests to determine when a trans woman can participate in women's sports competitions. These kinds of rules are more difficult to enforce in secondary education because of the lack of resources to test hormones. States have individually come up with rules to regulate trans athlete participation through restricting transgender athletes to teams of their assigned sex at birth, matching NCAA IOC guidelines, allowing school districts to decide, or allowing complete inclusion.
Speaking of testosterone, just so people know, I'm big and tough, right? Well, at 20-something, I think it was 22, is when I found out I was intersex. I knew I was always different. Like I said, I was odd. I'd even said, I don't even feel like I connect with men at all. It's weird, but then I'm not a woman. I'm not gay. I'm like confused. Well, society's confused and should have just told me what I was. But then when I went to a urologist, because I thought that one friend of mine had been real sexual and aggressive, and then he went to the doctor and they said he had too much testosterone. He had to take testosterone blockers, and then he was able to live a more normal life. I thought, fuck, maybe that's what I didn't realize I was a sociopath too. But so I thought, oh, well, look at this behavior of mine. That maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm too male, which was weird because I never fit in. But delusional people can be delusional even when they're smart.
Yeah,
themselves.
Yeah.
So, and also you're not informed. If you have nothing to build your evidence off of, then you just use what scraps you have, and they're wrong. You're making a wrong assumption. You're looking at, well, I see A, B, and C. Well, that must equal, this next thing. No, those aren't even A, B, and C. You're wrong. They're all A. Or whatever. Anyway, so, but when I went to the doctor and he told me that I was intersex, and one of the reasons he knew, besides my genitals, was he looked at my testosterone level. And he told me, your testosterone level is lower than most women. Because I have like DSD, delayed sexual development or whatever. And I took a long time to get facial hair. Took a long time to get genital hair. Took a long time to develop into more male looking. So I could have easily in high school passed all this stuff with no testosterone blockers because I didn't actually have as much. And yet I was bigger and tougher than everybody. So I was issue with the testosterone.
It ignores the complexity with which our bodies act, right? Like hormones play a role in various things, but there's also a bunch of other stuff going on. It's like,
definitely.
It's way oversimplified, and it's been something
because bigots want little boxes they can put their finger on. Aha!
Yep.
That's what I was just trying to make a comment that I don't totally buy this shit, because being intersex and knowing how I actually was, even as a young adult, I still had no testosterone. Right. I didn't have the beard as much. I couldn't, just a little wispy mustache. I didn't understand, but now I understand. And later I'm like, wow, man, I really came in like at 30 or something, not at teenage, like it should have.
Right.
For a person who's not intersex, not should have, in a sense. Nothing wrong with my body. It was acting
right.
like an intersex body.
Right. Yeah. Just the expectations were wrong.
The expectations were I was a male body, and that's really not accurate.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, man, if you didn't tell me you wanted to have sex, I would think you had no sex drive at all. In fact, your wife would be sending you here so you can get some medicine like testosterone so you can start having a sex drive. And I was like, yeah, but I have a really high sex drive. So, and he goes, well, it's not because of testosterone. but I'm just saying that people get into that. I've even heard some atheists, get in arguments about testosterone. I just go, that's just not a very valid argument to me.
No, it's not. And I mean, I know there are a lot of people who have covered the testosterone argument, various trans YouTubers and stuff that have talked about this subject, and it's just way more complicated than people think it is.
It's what, and the fact that we want a box to put every little thing in, and we only want to give 1 or 2 boxes, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
How about the fact that when a woman is, in a sense, cis and also masculine, we just call her a tomboy.
Right.
That's been around since I was a kid, not genderqueer, which she really is, in a sense, or something else. But I mean, because our society has made that okay. Like, it's not following a norm, but that norm is still close to the norm we accept, so that's fine.
Right.
But imagine if the boy does the same thing, acted feminine. That's
right.
Bad.
Well, yeah, no,
never
that's
good.
Right. that is one of the things that our society has always done, is like this being feminine, being like women is bad.
Right. It's not bad, but yes, the society says it is.
Yeah, that's right. So that's, I mean, one of the driving forces behind homophobia too, is like the idea that if you are having sex with men, then that makes you like a woman, so it's bad, right?
Yeah, which goes back to still sexism in a sense. It's homophobia by way of sexism. It's still involved. It's not removed. That's why, to me, thinking that feminism should only handle cis women is fucking ridiculous. It should handle homosexual men, because they're, in a sense, in the same category, not just trans or intersex or genderqueer, but I think even homosexuality in men, it also is, and then also really is homosexuality in women, because they're acting as it's not their gender, and they're being hated because they're not, because it goes to the sexist opinion that women don't have sex, men have sex with them.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Or that the purity culture, right? What the fuck? Like, to me, I've heard some feminists that are ridiculous. Like, they'll say, we should end all prostitution and all pornography because it's all violence against women. And I'm like,
how do you?
Women can't choose their own rights.
Yeah. How do you stop exploitation of women or trafficking of women or what have you
we should stop that.
But yes,
it's a different thing.
But you can't do that by making the women who perform sex for money criminals.
Well, to me, it goes back to, are they not a dignity being? Yes. Do dignity beings own themselves, or do I own them? Well, of course they own themselves. Well, then if they decide to be a prostitute and they actually want to do it, they should be allowed to do it. And society, to me, should not be judging them off of what? Our personal morals? What the fuck? If everybody was doing what Damien wanted, like I said, there'd be no fucking sports.
Right.
Lots of trans people, though.
Yeah, that's right. Fuck yeah.
Like someone said before, what the left wants is a bunch of communists where women are strong and men are weak. I'm like,
Sure.
That's not that far from what I want.
I mean, I don't want to view anybody as weak. That's the thing.
Well, it was a joke. I'm just saying
Yeah.
is they think it's such a put down, and I'm like, the toxic male culture. Yeah, I don't want any fucking part of that. So yeah, if that's not involved in the future, probably the future is better.
Yeah. Every single thing that traditional society is afraid of is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like, oh, you're gonna make it where people don't care about traditions. Yeah, because if they suck, they shouldn't.
That's right. We should have to throw out all traditions that suck.
Yeah. Plus, what is a tradition? How long does it have to go back before? Like 5,000 years?
Right.
Is that the tradition we're talking about?
For a while, like probably 2 years, I took my kids to a particular restaurant every Sunday that they were with me. We went and had breakfast. And that was a tradition in our family.
Right.
So
well, exactly. Well, to me, tradition is that I have to do what someone else already did, regardless of its value. I'm a value theorist. Value is more important than the tradition.
Yeah, for sure. I guess we kind of got off on a different track, but intersex and sports. On February 25th, 2021, South African athlete Caster Semenya filed an application to the European Court of Human Rights to fight for dignity, equality, and human rights of women in sports. She challenges the demeaning and intrusive regulations implemented by the World Athletics in 2018 that discriminate and prohibit some women, including women born with variations of sex characteristics, to participate in international competitions. Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, quote, being intersex of itself does not entail better performance, whereas other physical variations that do affect performance are not subjected to such scrutiny and restrictions.
Yeah, logic people.
Since my victory in the female 800-meter event at the Berlin World Championships in August 2009, I have been subjected to unwarranted and invasive scrutiny of the most intimate and private details of my being. Some of the occurrences leading up to and immediately following the Berlin World Championships have infringed not only on my rights as an athlete, but also my fundamental and human rights, including my rights to dignity and privacy. Sex testing. Historically, so-called sex testing of athletes has taken many forms. The International Association of Athletics Federations began doing physical examinations in 1966 and in 1968. The International Olympic Committee began conducting chromosomal tests. The IAAF formally stopped conducting chromosomal testing in 1992, though in 2009 began a practice of hormone testing, which continues today. In each case, testing and verification schemes can be linked with nationalism, i.e. that women athletes from certain world regions were outperforming those from others, and particularly from Europe. Racism, i.e. a significant portion of women targeted for these exams, particularly in the 21st century, are black, or people of color originating in Africa and Asia. And sexism, i.e. stemming from the belief that it was not possible for women to perform so well, and thus certain athletes must not be women at all. Most recently, April 2018, the IAAF introduced eligibility regulations for female classification. Athletes with differences of sex development for international events, including 400-meter hurdles races, 800-meter, 1,500-meter, 1-mile races, and combined events over the same distances. Restricted events. Under these regulations, all intersex women whose testosterone level exceeds 5 nmol per liter will be forced to take drug tests that suppress their natural suppress their natural testosterone level in order to be eligible. However, as the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has pointed out, being intersex of itself does not entail better performance, whereas other physical variations that do affect performance are not subjected to such scrutiny and restrictions.
Right, because it's really sexism and homophobia.
Yeah.
I feel which is inherent in sports.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
let's go back to the same, poor idea that sports is great.
Yeah, it's the idea that you are forcing people to take a drug that will suppress their natural levels of testosterone because of some imagined advantage they get based on it. It really shows that these organizations are like sexist and racist and
Homophobic.
Yeah, they just want you to fit into these boxes, and if you don't, then you're
Correct.
not.
And it also says you cannot be an intersex person and compete in sports.
Right.
It's an inherent. Well, because inherently, when you sex divided, I don't know, artificially, then you're mad because the natural thing of an intersex doesn't fit your unnatural classification of only two genders. Yeah, it causes a fucking problem.
Yep, for sure. It was like when talking about Caster Semenya, lots of people discussed Michael Phelps, who had increased webbing between his fingers and toes, which improved his push in the water,
right,
so he could swim faster. Well, shouldn't that be disqualified? Shouldn't he have to have those cut out because it gives him an unnatural, quote unquote, unnatural advantage? Like,
right. I mean, I know, I don't think, but I'm just saying that's the sim, because
exactly,
it's really a hidden way to be homophobic and sexist. But like I said, they're just actually doing what sports teaches. Sports does not teach these wholesome values that people think they. In fact, like I said, they don't happen without hazing. There is no wholesomeness to it from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Intersex individuals are born with variations of sex characteristics, sexual autonomy, reproductive organs, or sexual anatomy, reproductive organs, hormonal structure and or levels, and or chromosomal patterns that do not fit the typical definition of male or female. In March 2019, the 2019 UN Human Rights Council resolution on the elimination of discrimination against women and girls in sport notes with concern that the IAAF regulation may not be compatible with the international human rights norms and standards, and called upon states to ensure that sporting associations and bodies implement policies and practices in accordance with international human rights norms and standards, and refrain from developing and enforcing policies and practices that force, coerce, or otherwise pressure women and girl athletes into undergoing unnecessary, humiliating, and harmful medical procedures in order to participate in women's events in competitive sports. Despite these warnings, IAAF revised its guidelines in May 2019 to specifically mandate testing and coerce treatment based on the testosterone levels linked to certain intersex variations. Fuck you.
Right. Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Right, but and then a lot of these people, right? You say that the issue of trans in sports is protecting sports, not protecting human rights, but protecting sports. And you still think, why does Damien have a problem with it? So when the humanitarian issue came up, your idea is protect sports,
right? Yeah,
yeah. Not go, hey, why don't we change the way sports do because it's not healthy, and it picks a binary system that is a fucking lie when it started. It's always been a fucking lie. There's intersex, or appearing to, figurines that are 22,000 years old that were found from the Graviton culture in northern Italy.
Right.
Showing that, and then the oldest, like a kind of a ritual, they call it a fetish burial, is of three, looks like males. They used to think it was two males and the middle one was a female, but actually it was an intersex or maybe trans. I don't, it's hard to tell, but something was definitely different about their body. So it's something probably more to intersex or something. Okay. Was not. And the one of the hands was in the crotch of that person from the right. And the other person was upside down, was facing down. The two people are facing up. Anyways, it was a weird burial. And it had red ochre on their heads, and then the crotch of the person in the middle where the other person's hand was on it.
Okay.
So my point is, though, the reason they thought this because that behavior alone of them being together like this and seemingly somewhat sexual or something, and it all being males already was a problem for regular cis, heteronormative society. That, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder why they do that. I don't know. Well, could be intersex, could be homosexual, could be both. I mean, could be a trans person, and that, how about this? For sure, it's not a normal, as they want to call it, but if it's traditional from 31,000 years old,
yeah,
then the traditional value should be that we support homosexuality and or intersex and or trans people, because that's traditional. This bullshit of hating them, that's new.
It always it reminds me of the way that historians often will frame relationships between people. Like there's two women, say, that are like clearly in a lesbian relationship, but they'll be like, oh, they were the closest of friends.
Yeah, they bathed together and they slept together, and but they just really liked each other.
They were just really good friends.
Yeah, it's sexism and homophobia again, always.
Yeah, always.
But like I said, why that particularly sports demands it.
Yeah,
sports expects it, right? That's why they get so mad. How dare you do this? You're that sure doesn't sound very loving and healthy.
Especially, the vehemence and anger that it seems to bring up, eh?
How dare you make it more inclusive? Like, if that's the worst thought ever, right? Yeah, because sports are not good. I get it. You don't have to keep selling it. I already know.
Yeah. You have convinced me. Sports are bad.
You want me to agree that there's no such thing as good sports, because to even try to make them equal is offensive to you down to your core.
Yeah.
True, because sports are not good. Got it.
Trans people and sports. The participation of transgender people in competitive sports, a traditionally sex-segregated institution, is a controversial issue, particularly the inclusion of transgender women and girls in women's sports. Opponents argue that transgender women have an unfair advantage over and may endanger cisgender women in competitive sports due to sex differences in human physiology, and that these differences are not sufficiently reversed by transgender hormone therapies. Supporters of transgender athletes argue that medically prescribed puberty blockers and estrogen suppresses testosterone levels and reduces muscle mass of transgender women, reducing possible competitive advantages. Supporters also argue that sport, particularly youth sports, is also about the belonging, well-being, and socialization of young people. Supporters such as the American Medical Association contend that legislation barring trans women from women's sports harms the mental health of transgender people. The controversy has caused debates regarding sex verification in sports since the mid-20th century. Sports institutions have responded to the participation of transgender women and women suspected to be transgender, male or intersex, by adding eligibility requirements to women's sports, variously determined by physical examination, sex chromosomes, and sex hormones. Proponents of such regulations regard them as necessary to ensure fair competition and women's safety. However, since their inception, such regulations have been criticized as discriminatory against transgender and intersex women, and as causing violations of medical ethics. More recently, some U.S. states have passed legislation restricting the participation of transgender youth in high school sports. One of the
the bigotry knows no bounds in America.
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. And I think they've dropped the veil now, right? Like some of these laws, they're just anti-trans laws. They're not even anti-trans in sports laws. They're just like, no, you're not allowed to be trans.
Like Florida, don't say gay.
Right. You're just not allowed to talk about anything that isn't cis heteronormative bullshit.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? I think the doctor needs to talk to them.
Yeah, that's right. One of the earliest high-profile transgender athletes was tennis player Renee Richards. Already a promising tennis player in the men's circuit, Richards underwent gender reassignment therapy in 1975 and started playing in women's tournaments a year later. Her discovery and the resulting media frenzy sparked protests. After she accepted an invitation to a warm-up tournament for the U.S. Open, the Women's Tennis Association and the United States Tennis Association withdrew their support, and 25 of the 32 women pulled out of the tournament. As a result, the USTA and WTA introduced the Barr body test, which identifies a person's sex chromosomes. Richards refused to take the test and was banned from the U.S. Open. She filed a lawsuit in 1977 claiming that her civil rights were violated and that the policy was unfair. The New York Supreme Court ruled in her favor, saying that the Barr body test as the sole determinant of sex was grossly unfair, and ruled Richards legally female. She then competed in the 1977 U.S. Open at the age of 43, lost in the first round, and retired 4 years later. At the time, the ruling in Richards' case did not lead to major changes outside of tennis. Trans people and the Olympics. In 2003, a committee convened by the International Olympic Committee Medical Commission drew up new guidelines for the participation of athletes who had undergone gender reassignment. The report listed 3 conditions for participation. First, athletes must have undergone sex reassignment surgery, including changes in the external genitalia and
Hold on a second. As if that fucking does anything to your sports ability.
Right. No. Having a penis or not does not make one good at sports.
But see, what the thought is that if you take away your testicles, you become a woman.
Right. Because somehow that's what makes a woman or not.
Well, like I said, even with me, they thought that cutting out any part that was intersex would somehow make me not intersex, but that's just bullshit. Because even I got my tubes tied, whatever, so I can't produce a child. That's a personal choice. Some people don't make that choice. Right. I made it as an ethical person, not as a selfish thing. I had a secondary reason, but the main thing was actually because I didn't want to produce a child. And the reason I don't want to produce a child is because my family has such a fucking terrible thing of violence and sexual abuse and all kinds of shit. I did not feel like I would probably produce the most stellar human. And so I didn't want to bring a fucking monster in the world and then go, I guess I should have been more thoughtful. I thought, no, my family is fucking sick. That's enough for me. Don't need to bring no more of them. So I'm just saying it's a personal choice. So yeah. But I want to go back to what I said, why. So when the urologist or whatever, the guy that did the thing, he said, wow, your tubes are unnormal. They're huge. He goes, I don't even know if my clamps are big enough. I'm going to have to try to put 2 on there. And it may not even work. So once again, people, not only on the outside was there some differences, guess what? Shocker of all shocks. Being an intersex person is a real thing. And it was inside my body too. Oh my God. Not just my mind where I feel male. And also my whole body is actually not.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real thing.
Real thing, which I got kicked off of Instagram for showing a picture of my real thing. Actually, not even mine, but just art of intersex people. It was actually so people can learn, but that is too offensive. I deserve me to get permanently blocked from Instagram for one time. Fuck. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Where was
I expected controversy. I didn't expect to get fucking blocked on Instagram.
Right, just banned outright, eh?
Fuck, you're done. So I said, your account is suspended. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like almost 30 seconds after I posted it. I mean, it was a little longer, maybe a minute, but I was like, holy shit. What the fuck?
Really fast.
It shows the problem. They just cannot accept that there's not a gender binary.
Yeah.
And every time you prove them otherwise, that the people do not like that.
Yep, for sure. So second, athletes must show legal recognition of their gender. And third, athletes must have undergone hormone therapy for an appropriate time before participation, with 2 years being the suggested time. It was not until 2004 that the IOC allowed transgender athletes to participate in the Olympic Games. In 2015, the IOC modified these guidelines in recognition that legal recognition of gender could be difficult in countries where gender transition is not legal. and that requiring surgery in otherwise healthy individuals may be inconsistent with developing legislation and notions of human rights. The new guidelines require only that trans women athletes declare their gender and not change that assertion for 4 years, as well as demonstrate a testosterone level of less than 10 nanomoles per liter for at least 1 year prior to competition and throughout the period of eligibility. Athletes who transitioned from female to male were allowed to compete without restriction. These guidelines were in effect for the 2016 Rio Olympics, although no openly transgender athletes competed. In 2021, the IOC approved Laurel Hubbard, a trans woman, to compete in the 2020 Summer Olympics in weightlifting. Hubbard became the first out trans woman to compete at the Olympics. She did not complete her lifts and won no medals. Caitlin Burns, an MSNBC opinion columnist, suggested Hubbard's performance demonstrates that transgender athletes do not always win. Hubbard competed with the support of her fellow Olympian competitors. Australian weightlifter Charisma Amotarant said, "I have so much respect for her and wish her and the other lifters the best and hope we can all come together and enjoy the Olympics. Because this Olympics right now is quite different compared to others. I've competed with her previously and always had good chats with her. I just wish her well." On June 21st, or on July 21st, 2021, at the same games, Canadian non-binary soccer player Quinn became the first transgender person to compete at the Olympics, playing for the Canadian women's soccer team. At the 2020 Summer Olympics, they became the first out transgender Olympian to medal and win a gold medal. Alana Smith, a non-binary skateboarder, represented the United States in the women's skateboarding semifinals of the 2020 Summer Olympics. In November 2021, the IOC issued a non-legally binding framework that focuses on 10 principles of inclusion: prevention of harm, non-discrimination, and fairness, no presumption of advantage, and evidence-based approach, primacy of health and bodily autonomy, stakeholder-centered approach, right to privacy, and periodic reviews. The new guidelines have been described as loosening rules that impede transgender and intersex athletes' participation in Olympic sports, with enforcement of sport-specific rules governing inclusion. On February 18th, 2022, Timothy Leduc became the first openly non-binary athlete to compete in a Winter Olympics in Beijing. They competed in pairs figure skating alongside their skating partner Ashley Kane Gribble for Team USA. And I believe that's the end of my notes.
Right on. Like I said, there's a lot more, so it's not like it's. But I wanted to address, at least somewhat thoughtfully, so people can grasp that the subjects are not what they probably think, especially historical about sports or sports in general, because I know a lot of people just give sports a pass, and a lot of people have inaccurate understanding of the rights or the needed rights of trans, people and intersex people.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't. I wasn't even at first gonna do this. It's actually what inspired me to do this was someone made a stupid fucking comment on one of my videos and said, because I had said in the video, I guess with you, I had just made a comment that I'm anti-sports, but I'm pro-trans in sports, or maybe I didn't make that as distinct enough.
Okay.
They just heard that I'm anti-sports, because I think I said that, if I remember, I said that people won't like my take about trans in sports. I'm anti-sports and fucking sports. How about that? How do you solve this problem? I don't know. Get rid of fucking sports.
Yeah.
How about make them inclusive? Start all over again and make an inclusive sport and start there. How about that?
Yeah, that's right. We have recently in Canada had our football team is in a labor dispute with the owners. And I see a lot of people who are like sports fans. They're big fans of their team, but they're pissed off that the Players Association has voted to reject an offer by the owners. We're going a couple weeks back now, so it's like things might have changed. But at the time, I was like, okay, well, I don't give a shit about sports, but I support workers. You know,
I do too.
you know,
Both those
like,
actually, both those are my statements too. I don't like sports, and yes, I support workers.
so when players are fighting for better wages and better working conditions from the owners, I will always side with the workers. I will always side with the players. And
I agree with that. And let me just real quick highlight why. Because the thought is that you have to ask for better instead of demanding what you've already deserved and have been violated to begin with.
exactly.
I mean, to me, it's crazy this thinking. 80% of your labor or 90% of your labor value, or maybe even higher, right, is taken away from you to begin with by being paid this wage that doesn't match your labor value.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not even fucking close. And so when they say profits or whatever, you mean the labor value that I produced, you get to rob 90%. Like,
yeah.
Well, that's voluntary. I was, what?
You're stealing from me.
And then they'll say, but taxes, those are bad. I'm like, yeah, I almost support taxes. I mean, if you mean that it helps benefit the whole.
Taxes
so
go to everyone.
Me on both parts. I'm kind of for that if it was done, healthy.
Yeah.
And then this other thing of taking 90%, 80%, what? That's not even ethical. I say this all the time. People get mad. My argument is capitalism is not ethical.
Well, that's right.
That's done. See, I don't even fuck around with this whole fuck you. It's not ethical. It's not right to take 80, 90% of my fucking wage away. The value of the labor is what I want to call it.
Yep.
And then think that's ethical.
Yep.
I always go, So would you agree there's a thing called business ethics? Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, to me, what business ethics is basically supports capitalism. It doesn't actually challenge itself and go, the workers are getting pretty fucked. That's really not ethical. You need to be paying them a higher wage. Like, how are you taking 80, 90% of their labor value? What? You call that profit? You mean robbery? Wage theft? Wage slavery? What?
Yeah.
You get my point. Capitalists say you have to have things that business ethics, but the ethics support the capitalism that's doing the violation. But yet seems to have no ethical understanding that capitalism is involved in this ethical sphere. But it demands there's business ethics, so it knows there's ethics. So I call that fucking lying.
Yeah, business ethics means you don't do insider trading. Or you don't get caught
don't
doing
hurt the capitalists.
Yeah, that's right. You don't hurt the capitalists. You have to maintain the capitalist system.
Yeah, it's pseudo ethics to me. Fucking pseudo. Yeah. If you can say you're ethical and then you don't care about humans but care about the business, you're not ethical. Shut the fuck up.
That's right.
That's just bullshit. Like you said before, economics is a pseudo.
Pseudoscience. Yeah.
Pseudoscience.
Yep.
And I'm like, and I see it as because in a sense it starts with a complete flaw. There's this thing called ethics, and somehow we can limit what we look at.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So I'm an ethical person, but I can't evaluate if capitalism is ethical? Oh, bullshit.
Yeah. Economics works in a vacuum.
Right. Just like sports. It works in a vacuum. If you are a heterosexual Christian white male, you have fucking every privilege in a sense for sports.
Right.
So, and especially if you're big, right? So you're big. I remember, in fact, talking about toxic sports. I was in wrestling because a sport where I could hurt men was a fun sport to me. When I was not because I liked sports. It just to me was violence. I get to go and hurt these guys, and I'm gonna freaking maul them. And I did. I was great at hurting people. And like I said, it was crazy. I was in low testosterone, so it wasn't fair. Here I was, almost feminine, and yet I was beating all these guys.
Jeez,
But the thing is, what the coach would do. See, the whole thing is taught this sick mentality. He said he would have us go work out. Right? I think it was 2 or 3 hours. I can't remember exactly after school or whatever. I can't remember exactly how many hours, but it was something like that. Anyways, but we would get thirsty because we're exercising, right? And so he would give, I think it was 1 or 2 breaks, so almost none. You're like dying of thirst,
right?
But he said, first come, first serve. and you only get 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, no matter if everyone's got a drink, it ends. So what's that create? Total violence. All the big dudes, of course, get a drink first.
Yeah.
So the power or whatever, the strong survive, whatever. And all the weaker, the smallest ones, because they had people from like 98 pounds to 250.
Right.
And what? Talk about unfair. You're worried about transports. I'm worried about the 98 person trying to get a drink of water, at the water fountain with the 15 minutes, and the 250 guys are making sure they get enough water first.
Yeah.
To me, this whole bullshit. That's why I call bullshit. You never gave a fuck about fair.
Right. Right.
No, not until it was sexist, and then you're like, or homophobia. Oh, fucking hey, we gotta defend the male, bullshit.
Yeah. No.
How dare they be unfair? Really, you didn't give a fuck. Because if I told that story, like, yeah, I could probably taught you. Because you know what the coach said? Because I brought it up to him. I said, man, how's that fair? These other guys, they're not even getting water. He goes, yeah, but you see it. The next couple days, you'll see those little dudes run so fast to get a water, the big dudes can't even get up in time. And so it teaches them to be fast. And I said, this is just
bullshit, man.
And people would probably go, sports, yeah, see it taught them to be self-reliant. I was like, oh my, this is toxic. How can you not see this?
It taught them that if they didn't run as fast as they possibly could, then they would suffer.
Yeah.
That's what it taught them.
Yeah.
It's not
sickening.
Okay.
And the fact, like, this is taught in school. So they think, like, oh, well, kids' sports is different than regular sports. No, it's all of it's toxic.
Yeah, it's all
not
bullshit.
Better. Anyways.
At
least people now, when they hear me say I'm anti-sports, they'll have some clue that I'm not like just biasly doing this. That there is some legitimate grievances that anyone should have about sports.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I hope also that people realize that they should be supporting people of different genders and not this stupid, arbitrary, fake, forced sex differentiation of only men and women. It's not medically sound. It's fucking horseshit. It's religion, and it's just sexism, homophobia, and whatever bullcrap.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and so that's the answer to the person who quit. Damien, you said you don't like sports. Of course, they didn't care about that. But what do you feel about a biological person born as a man transitioning to a woman then playing in women's sports? And so I didn't even respond. But that's what this video is for. So if you're listening, this is for you.
So please accept this as the point.
This is my answer, long as it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll say it clear. I totally support trans people and intersex people in sports.
Yes.
There's your answer.
As long as sports exist, yes.
Yes. How about this? They're more important than sports. That's what I've tried to say the last time. I guess I didn't say that clear enough.
Yeah.
And here, I'm an anarchist. Do you think I'm going to force people to stop sports? No. But what I'm going to do as a person who critiques bullshit, I'm going to show you, you know what? It's not as good and wholesome as you fucking think it is.
Right. Yeah.
So.
No, for sure.
And on the happy note, I do believe that society is changing. And one of the ways we change society is we stop accepting the fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just have to.
That's great.
So what are your thoughts, Corey? Yeah. Are you sure you had ones previous to any of this? And probably, I don't think I changed any of yours.
I think I largely agreed with you beforehand. I largely agree with you now. Like I'm not a fan of sports. I think it's divisive. I think the Olympics actually, they talk about it as like this thing that's supposed to unite and bring countries together, but all it does is divide us more. Then, if they're not going to honor human rights, like if they're not going to actually recognize the rights of women and transgender people and intersex people, like, or non-binary people, like, I'm sorry, then why should I even be interested in this as a thing to keep?
Exactly. So we're saying protect the sexism, the bigotry, the homophobia, the racism, the fucking violence, but please don't bring people that are different into sports. Like, what the fuck? And you think my care should be that we're changing sports from what it is. We need to change sports from what it is. How about that?
Exactly. It needs to be something different.
Well, because it should be about the value. That's why I said it's me. I know a lot of times people think that my ideas are really wild, but if you really understood axiology and the understanding and looking at the value of things, of people, you would behave different.
Mm-hmm.
You just would. Well, I guess if you're not ethical, I guess maybe then you wouldn't. Because you can see things and just look, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. I have serious problems with like in Canada we have like a huge hockey culture, and in Saskatchewan we have a big football culture. Like we play CFL, like we have a CFL team here, so that's our only team in a national league, and it's so pervasive. Like the idea that we all must accept this. Like,
yeah.
I'm just not a sports person. Like I never was. I haven't been in so long. Like, it's frustrating that I have to fit into this box because I happen to be from where I am, because I happen to be a dude, because I happen to be, in relatively decent physical shape. Then people assume various things of me, like right. That I give a shit about any of this stuff. And I'm sorry, it's not making the world better. And that's what I care about. So.
Yeah. So would you say that you learned anything from what you read?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously the stuff from history, I didn't know any of that. Like that was really interesting to learn about how the Egyptians and Mesoamerican cultures did their sports, and the China and Asian cultures did their sports. Like that's interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's actually more too in the blog that, like I said, if people want to read even more, and like you said, there's people have written books on all this stuff.
Yeah. If you wanted to get even farther into it,
right?
Yeah.
But I think it's helpful because I think it gives you a more balanced reality approach. Because I always feel like the people on the right or people that are anti-trans, intersex somehow think that they have like the reality and the science approach. Fuck right. No.
Yeah. Yeah, they imagine their version of history as the ultimate version of history. And I think that what we do here, what you do with your blog is helpful because it shows that no, this is just a little piece of history. And there's so many other things going on that fed into it as well. Like,
exactly.
So no, I'm sorry, your version of white Eurocentric fucking sports is not the only fucking thing.
Well, and I wanted to, like, in general, people need to grasp how much Asia actually is involved in all the world's stuff.
Right.
Both the Americas and in Europe and in the Middle East. I mean, the like I said, Chinese balls, right? You read, were in Greece. The oldest Greece sport of the playing balls was Chinese balls. Well, right. I didn't make that up. Funny how what I said was so true to archaeology. But I find it is one person said that one of my my art whatever was if I think that it affects archaeology, then it's wishful thinking. I didn't even argue. I just posted like 3 or 4 more memes. But I was going to say this the same with why I didn't respond to that person who's asked me if I supported trans, being biological, born a male. Once they said that bullshit, oh my God, I already know this is going to be a longer conversation than I want to get involved in.
Right.
Not that I don't care about it. It's just like, I don't, here's the thought. I don't have to actually attend every argument that's thrown at me.
Yeah, that's a good thing to remember, right? Like, because everybody, when they argue with you, they think that you have to reply. But I don't owe you my time.
That's what. And also, people don't grasp. I know that I'm not as well known as some people, but I've been doing this for 15 years. So look at the stuff that I did on the UN that got me kicked off of LinkedIn. Some of the stuff, right? Oh, I thought. Oh. Don't even fucking try to act like I wasn't involved. Shit, I was involved more than most people are involved. And that's also why I've been banned from Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm also choosing to really not get involved in stuff, or trying not to, because it's still hard for me, but trying not to at that much on Twitter, because I just know the day will come when I'm going to be blocked off of Twitter permanently. Not because as you know my ideas. It's not like I go out and say hateful things. In fact, it's the opposite. But it's how good I am at attacking bigots and how fucking pissed they get at me.
Yeah.
Because I make them feel shame.
It's a good way to get reported.
That I get reported because they can't let it go.
Yeah.
They're fucking raging inside or feeling shame, and they want. I did it to them. I made them feel the shame they deserve.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, all that, LinkedIn or whatever is, you're just attack people. I attack bigots.
Yeah.
And if you read the thing, was that even that harsh?
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still, I did it in an ethical way. So I don't even attack them in a bad way, and still I'm the bully.
Yeah.
What the fuck, society?
Ridiculous.
But I really appreciate you, and I know that you and me do think a lot alike, and people don't know. It's not like that you and me get together and decide that we're going to think the same or some bullshit. We're just both actually, similar type of anarchists. That it's like, this seems like A, B, C, D. What the?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It seems pretty clear,
right? I mean, that's how it feels to me. Like that, even like that one person said something about pornography and prostitution. We hadn't ever talked about it. I didn't know what your views were, but our views were 100% the same, it seemed like. And a lot of stuff is like, I'm just saying that people think that somehow, it sounds like you and me are on the same page. Yeah, but not because we've examined pages.
No, that's right. Yeah. I try to think of things in the most liberatory and freedom valuing and most dignity valuing way I can. So that's gonna, if we do the same thing, then we're gonna end up in the same places, right?
Right. I'm a value theorist, so that's kind of like the whole point of what I do.
Right. So it seems like we're gonna end up in the same place.
Well, we do, and but I knew you were a great person, and you've done nothing but prove that I was totally right. So
I appreciate that, and I really appreciate doing the show with you. So it's been a great experience so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, people need to know that we're going to be doing a series. I know I talked about it about a couple of months ago, right? In a show called Anarchist Teaching, I think it was, or something. I don't remember now exactly, but where I addressed that we're going to be doing basically Mesopotamia, all the beginning first cities and rulers and stuff. One thing I want to do is show you that it hasn't really changed. This goes back to my statement of that it's always been capitalism. 7,000 years. You keep calling it different things, but this one they go, well, but there was slaves, and I go, yeah, and there was workers too. So we're going to deny that workers were there just because they also had slaves?
Right.
Are you telling me that in colonial America that there was only slaves and that was it? Or could capitalism exist while slavery exists? Oh,
yep.
Here's a thought. Different workers are having different experiences. So you could both have capitalism and feudalism, or capitalism and slavery, and capitalism and corporatism, or whatever the fuck. Because capitalism, to me, is this thought that I can steal from you, and I can own the earth and land and resources and stuff, and I have some right, and my children have that right, and it just keeps extending. This whole thought that power and dominance is the way to do things, and it's ethical to take people's labor, and have no moral compunction about doing it, but somehow it's healthy. What the? No, it's not.
Yeah, ultimately, the exploitation is the same regardless of what you call it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other thing too. Is to me, then if you just want to call it what I say is all the seeds of capitalism. But like I said, too, well, the hierarchy, yeah, at 5,100 or 5,150, I don't know exactly, was definitely the institutionalizing of hierarchy. Right. It might have already been there, I think, maybe since 7,000 or 6,000, almost for sure, but 5,500. That's what we're going to talk about sort of is because I think that once you, like you said about history, once you start understanding the facts, you'll get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot easier. Like I said, if you look at hierarchy, the hierarchy that the pharaoh had, only thing different is you took the pharaoh off and you put money on top, and now you have the capitalist pyramid. So
Right.
You just changed slavery to wage slave, but like I told you, there was wage slavery in Egypt.
Right.
First, I have a thing. It's 3,175 or something like that. Is the first labor strike in Egypt because they didn't pay the weekly rations of alcohol and bread. And this happened for like, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. They did not get their stuff. And the people said, we're not going to keep building the pyramid.
Yeah.
Fucking done. Their labor strike. And then the king was so worried that it wasn't, oh, fine, you're giving some stuff. Because did they pay him back wages? Would a capitalist really do that? Come on. Well, guess what? The king was the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all about hoarding wealth. And it's the thought about the certain people are better people. And that's why I hate when they talk about, oh, it was a great king. He built this. That motherfucker never built shit.
Right.
Quit fucking lying. No, that asshole
workers
was in
built
charge
that.
of workers doing it. And here's the thing that he didn't even fucking take care of.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, Damien, you just have a negative view of the pyramids. Oh, really? Did you read the thing where it says that he was a tyrant? The first pyramid was built by a person who was an absolute fucking tyrant.
Yeah.
And like, oh, well, yeah. You know, there's like things where they used to cut off people's hands. Yeah, like groups of them.
Okay.
Because, well, once again, your hand can be used as war. Cut off your sword hand, well, you're not going to be doing too many swords. So, but that's the same as labor busting and whatever. You know,
right?
Not exactly the same, but I'm saying it's a similar mentality of force and dominance and violence as a way of. And they talk about it as good. Well, the king had to, squash a rebellion. You mean the people were trying to fight the fuck back, and the fucking asshole won?
Yeah. You mean the people were suffering and fought and lost? That's what happened.
Right. Well, it's no different today. People will go, well, America's pushing freedom everywhere. I'm like, okay. Every time the people try to get communism or socialism, America panics and sends war machines to fucking destroy them and puts dictators in. Yeah, because they like the vote. Yeah, they put dictators in that are amenable to or that like or work with the U.S. because then they always go, well, it help U.S. interests. Right, not the people. Not democracy. U.S. interests. Not the world interests. U.S. interests. Don't you even listen to their own fucking rhetoric?
Which even means like the capitalists in America.
Yes, it does.
Right? Like it doesn't even mean the country itself. Why would we make the country better?
What? Well, they don't say, you know what? We support communism as long as it's done through democracy.
No, they don't.
They'll say the exact opposite. If they try to bring communism in with democracy, we'll just remove democracy. We'll split a dictator because you know what? Whatever we have to do, the people cannot take over. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck, eh?
But going back to the thing of sports in general, but it's a similar mindset. It's that just like capitalism in general, it's this mindset that's invalid. That somehow you can steal half or more of 80% of someone's labor value, and you've done nothing wrong. What the fuck? How, like I said, if you came and worked for me, right, and I were to pay you only a 10% of what your labor makes, would you think highly of me? I mean,
well, I mean, under current conditions, that's like the way
that may be above. That'd be above average.
Right.
You're like, hey man, that's actually above the median.
That's a raise. Thank you very much.
But see, but that's the other thing. Let's just say they get 20%. Oh my God, they're so happy. My job is so great. Like, actually, your job is fucked.
Yeah.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't allow you to even challenge this system, this thinking that it was even okay.
Yeah.
That's why I said, to me, when people are the right-wing libertarians, I just fuck them. Like, disgusted and laugh at it. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that dumb bullshit. Like this one guy said, he supports any anarchist, right, left, or I don't.
Nope.
Fuck you. If you don't support value and human rights, you're not what I consider. Period. Done. You want to say you're against the state? Yeah, but why? I'm against the state because it's immoral, because it actually promotes the capitalist class. Like I said, Americanism goes out and kills anything communism it can. In fact, we're fighting the war with Russia, not because we are so pro-Ukraine, but because Ukraine is a proxy state for our war against Russia. Here's an interesting thought, though. We could have done that in Syria, but we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't white people, I guess. Because when white people were threatened, oh my God, fucking make sure capitalism wins the day no matter what, even if they're fascists or anything.
You see that on the news too, like in the media with the way they maybe they fixed their rhetoric a little bit now, but at the start of the Ukraine-Russia war, it was, oh, well, we've never seen this happen in a civilized country. Oh, it's one thing if it's down in the Middle East, but it's a whole other thing when it's
which is fucking racist.
Oh, it's fucking racist as hell. Like, oh my God. But they said it out loud. Like they just said it. And
because it seems normal to a person who's a fucking racist. In America, newsflash, America is fucking racist, sexist, and homophobic.
Yes, even those that are not Republicans, even the non-Republicans are still.
Yeah, lots of non-Republicans. I mean, tell you, I was still am somewhat disgusted with this attitude that on both sides, this fucking pro-war. I understand. You won't even help an ally like the Kurds, who helped us fight ISIS, who died so that we don't have to have supposedly ISIS. We let those fuckers die in the wind, but Ukraine, not an ally, not even part of NATO, they want to send billions to support. It's just disingenuous.
Yes. Yeah.
Is what I want to say, the nicest way of saying it.
Yep. No, that's right.
And I support the people of Ukraine. I don't support, any fascist fucking government, including my own.
Yeah,
that's why people get mad when I say once in a while say things against Biden. I don't know, when Biden says that we should not give people help with their college or help the poor then he's a fucking scumbag.
Yep, that's right.
And just like I said about the Kamala Harris, where that person had got mad because we were holding her accountable to, I don't know what the fuck she said.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like, oh, well, don't hold her accountable. She tried. I don't know. How do you try to help the poor and they decide, I don't need to help them anymore? Do you call that person still a good person? Because I don't.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And the fact that
it's fucked. The idea that they couldn't do it, if that's legitimate, then the system is fucked. Like, then you legitimately can't do anything good in your country. And if they could do it but chose not to, then they're fucked. And you need to get rid of them and get somebody who will actually do good things in there.
So, like I told you, I am an anarchist that votes. Not because I believe the fucking voting system is going to help get anarchism. No. Not because I don't think these people act like fascists, because sometimes they do. But I have to choose that. Here's one that actually will let people be trans without fucking extreme discrimination, or, I don't know, doesn't care about burning the fucking planet alive with fucking endless fucking fossil fuels.
Or at least they say that, and then they come and they do these things like approving pipelines, and they don't fight against the laws that are against.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree. I'm not saying that the Democrats do a lot of fucking good as they think they do. That's why I was trying to make the point about the Kamala Harris. Here's a person who said in 2020 that we should give $2,000 a month for people because they're suffering and should do it the entire duration of COVID. And I thought, I totally fucking support that.
100%.
And then to somehow never bring it up again, or even demand it in some other kind of way, or even a lesser way, or keep talking about it daily because people are fucking not doing better, they're doing worse.
Yep.
And so somehow, so to me, the not talking about it either you were a liar or you're a fucking scum. You decide.
Either way.
You decide. That's what I think. One of those, either you're a liar or you're scum.
Yeah.
Or here's a new flash. If you think otherwise, then start doing something about helping the poor right now, period.
Yeah.
Just like the fact that Biden said, oh, I'm not going to do anything if the Supreme Court does abortion. Then you should be impeached, you fucker.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Like I said, if you're not going to support trans people, then get the fuck out. Yep. How are people okay? It's like, that's the thing I really hate about politics is hero worship. I told you, it's disgusting. Values, if they do something valuable, I'll acknowledge it. But to like them even when they don't do things valuable is just sickening.
I read like years and years ago, I used to talk about it a lot more than I do now, but years ago I read a study that talked about how if somebody on your political team, somebody that you voted for, does just flat out math wrong and says 2 + 2 = 3, then you're more likely to side with that person, even though they're obviously wrong, just because they're on your team. And I used to talk about this all the time. Like that was like 2012, I think 2013. I was talking about that at work. I'm going, we shouldn't be picking teams on these political teams because that makes us less open to actual evidence and actual reason and actual value. But
right, and that's why I say because I care about actual values. Why I say please don't ever, if you think I should, don't ever worship me ever. What the fuck? Worship value, worship reason, which you shouldn't do that either. But I mean, that would be better.
That would be better.
That would be a lot better.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think I'm good for the day.
All right. Right on. Well, go ahead and tell us. I forgot the last show, but go ahead and tell us. Where to find you.
It's I'm at Skeptical Lefty on Twitter. My show is The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. I'm on YouTube and all the podcast apps. I haven't put out a show in probably 3 weeks or something because I've been working so much, but I'm hoping to get something done this week.
Well, like I told you before, you feel free to upload or put any of the stuff that we've done together in any way you want.
Actually, I probably should. Yeah.
Including if you just even did it as a copy video, it's fine. None of it bothers me because I don't care about me doing it somehow to become famous. This is all because I feel it's needed shit that needs to be talked about.
I guess.
We've done like 80 hours or something.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of shows to put out.
It'd be good to like put some of this stuff out as a podcast so that it increase the reach, the number of people that it can reach.
Because that really is what more important to me is actually that it's beneficial. I'm trying to address, beneficial stuff because I feel like there's a need.
Yeah.
So I totally it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, like I said, I see it as a good thing. So if this is what you want to do.
Sounds great. I will try to get that.
All of a sudden they see 80 videos. They're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Well, see you next time. And we're going to do a series. It'll be 12 videos. And I think I asked you before about getting other people. Maybe not. Because I really want to focus on these videos because I want to explain how we ended up with statism and what it did from the beginning, not like way later.
Right.
From the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, how this shit happened.
Yeah, I guess in 2 weeks we've got Justin Clark is coming on.
Yes.
And then after that we'll be starting.
After that, it will be hammering 12 different shows all about breaking it down. Like I said before, there's a video people will watch is 1 hour long, but we're going to make it 12 hours or maybe 20 hours.
Depending on how long. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. No, it sounds good.
All right. Well, I've enjoyed it as always, and take care. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at AtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.